noted it, they wanted to make the amendment, but even still, that was information in the hearing from a person. But it wasn't even directly from the entity that would be giving the in-kind. So I don't even know how that would function, frankly, from a paperwork standpoint. So I have full attention to what you're saying here on the time frame of, okay, you have to take into consideration reality. Somebody's spouse passes away. These are real things that you deal with. And just even the appointment of new treasurer. So I think I agree, if there is something, it's in a time frame of which they became aware of it legitimately, not just based off of assumptions or allegations. And then they worked to make it right. I mean,
That would have been 9/27.
Right.
From the festival.
right.
Right, when did she appoint her new treasurer? I don't see that.
Numbers. She said her husband passed away in August, September. That's all I have. I didn't have anything.
I don't think she ever said it was ever.
Right.
Thank you.
But, once you get notice from the Secretary of State, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Phil, that you need to amend your report, something's wrong with it, they send you a notice and you have 21 days. Is that correct?
That's what it
So
says.
it's on you that you have 21 days.
Did she receive that notice?
No, no.
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
no.
So-
Well, no, but my
Right.
point is, if you look at, this is giving her some mitigation, I'm saying that Secretary of State gives you at least 21 days. You follow me? So
So that's kind of where you came up with November 1st from.
yeah, and then I'm just, I wouldn't go back from 9/27 because I don't think that's fair. They knew, but, they were, again, they were dilatory, they were late, I believe. And I think to look at this as any other case we have, somebody's a couple months late, it's clearly a violation. What's defined, you look at their prior, all that stuff, so. Just like we would.
My only point of clarification, with all due respect to the Secretary of State, is a statutory requirement for 21 days.
Yeah, I was actually giving mitigation. to
Right.
the campaign, so.
And to the degree of, well, I notified my attorney. I mean, that was like the quote, right? Like, I didn't, So in that, there's obviously a lot of sensitivity around doing anything when there's a case pending over the matter. So I think in my mind, they went in a direction that could potentially incriminate them out of due diligence to make it right. So we always talk about compliance being our intention and the measures that we take here. It seems like they went and said, okay, well, now that we know that, that doesn't look right, so we're gonna make it right. And they did it in the middle of the hearing, which I don't know what I would do if I was in that circumstance. But usually when there's a lawsuit pending, you don't do a whole lot of anything that's actionable. So I thought that was an interesting, just that anything happened and transpired in that time frame was interesting. For whatever that's worth, I think it's not helpful.
Interesting in one aspect.
I think just that it happened. I mean, I don't think it leads you to say guilty, not guilty, anything along those lines. I think it seems like it was out of an abundance of diligence to make it right when the information was brought to their awareness and testimony. But I don't know that even you should or could act and like, it wouldn't seem to be a normal thing. Like most people that are in a situation of this high level stress and litigation maybe wouldn't even move one direction or the other. So I just thought it was interesting to note that they actually amended it. And so you're saying you have a 21-day period grace period.
Right.
Well, that's not really normal in this circumstance, I wouldn't think.
No, but you're, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're talking why they wouldn't have. You started talking about on the advice of the attorney, so why they wouldn't do anything going back to them, right?
Right, I mean,
Right, yeah. I
If you
don't-
thought you were wrong the entire time, probably amending the report wouldn't be the right move because you'd be admitting, oh yeah, we're wrong. But if you were just acting in good accordance and good faith that, oh, we now have information we didn't
Right.
have originally, we want to do the right thing. I think it's a different action where some people would say, we're not gonna do anything because something could signify, but they did in full transparency. Yeah. Reflect what was brought to them.
I think we have to, you also have to, I'm sorry, I don't want to monopolize it. But I think you have to look at the backdrop, what's here. This is, everybody said it is, it's a unique situation. So I try to put myself in Ms. Schmidt's shoes also. And when Mr. Caraway testified, he said that he had a conversation with her afterward, but they believed that they followed the law and that they would let the process play out. Now, I don't think I would have done anything different, given the backdrop that we know, she knows what's going on with household. She's got an attorney. It's like, I'd be like, oh my Lord, I mean, I'm just being honest, I'd be like, is he gonna tie me into stuff that I don't know anything about? I mean, I think that's normal, right? Am I gonna go to prison because he's going to prison?
Well,
I didn't do anything, but I mean, this is to Christina's point. I would have had an attorney. I wouldn't have talked to anybody either from that point, is what I'm saying.
and her main confidant in her campaign, her spouse, who's her treasurer, is gone.
Right.
And now who do you talk to?
Right.
Who you go to with the institutional knowledge of what transpired during your campaign? Then maybe she left all of that to him. You know what I'm saying? So I think paralysis by analysis, or just being really, overwhelmed with not only accusations being made, which some of which, obviously, if RJ Mancini worked on her campaign, I feel like that came to light. So that's something that she's probably, like you said, what else is out there that I don't know about? And then grief. And then coming into the holidays and, trying to manage your life and your career. I think it was probably a very hard time for her. And I think to your point, Christine, I think she was trying to do the right things. I'm not saying I feel like she did or didn't do all the right things, but I feel like in her mind, and probably in Mr. O'Brien's mind, they were doing what they knowingly could do. So.
I would agree if it weren't for those affidavits.
Oh, yeah, no, I,
Those were so misleading. It was like a smack in the face. Even the first time I read them, I'm like, this is written in a way that's clearly meant to hide something. And it was pretty clear what it was. So, and that was before her husband passed.
that's great.
I would agree with everything that's been said, except for those affidavits.
So what does that mean?
To me.
Yeah.
Means that, I hypothesize that,
Well, yeah,
part, finish.
Yeah.
Part of it was, I don't think it's, out of stretch to say that, Mr. Hicks doesn't come from the Dale Carnegie School. And there's animosity, right, down in Claremont County based on history, so that it was coming from him. Probably, if I'm her, I would have dug in heels around, I'm not gonna let this guy push me around. There may have been concern around, like you said, being head of the household or something. So, probably, I'm guessing, her counsel advised her, like, hey, we can write these affidavits to be truthful, but the commission won't notice the difference, which I think was tad insulting and not really on the up and up. That's my impression of it. So I believe that there was at least knowing she knew at that point that at a minimum, Mancini had done some work, right? And as opposed to do affidavits to try to throw us off the track, by the way they're written, there should be some duty to, maybe the ORP goes back and writes some sort of an amendment or something in kind, but something should have happened other than going through the hearing with nothing until January, whatever it was. That's my thought.
and just so everybody, I got it here, I apologize, I couldn't find it, but maybe he testified, and this is quoting, he says, once Mr. Mancini testified, he was part of the campaign committee. The campaign committee should update the report. So maybe it's
September 27th.
right. Well, the clock's ticking. We look at, like you were saying, some mitigation based on what's going on. Do we or we don't? I just,
Right. I think that I also have a little bit of a issue with the affidavits I highlighted. I do, agree that we can, people can spend something the way they want. I had, Ralph Seacars, and he's saying he did not specifically assign or any other person to specifically work or volunteer. And then, and I believe, and I don't want to just get conjecture out of my mind, but I believe that RJ Mancini also said during the Freeman case that he did not work on, it was Mrs., Ms. Schmidt's campaign was brought into the Freeman case quite a bit as well. I think once she knew on September 27th, I feel like I probably would have liked to have seen her do something then at that point. But do I also understand that she was in an extreme situation? Yes. Do I appreciate the fact that she came into compliance and did the reporting, and that she paid things that maybe she wasn't even sure she owed? Yes, but I also, you can't deny there was a violation. So whether that, I don't know that I believe that it should be $27.50 a day for $19,000 and, some change. But I believe that there was a violation. Do I believe that? I think she has tried to be in compliant, tried to do the right things, yes, but maybe not in that, when the clock started ticking, to Mr. Mayhew's point, so. I don't know, I just babbled. I don't think any of that.
no, I mentioned perfect sense.
Can I, so go back to the affidavit. And I remember when I first sat down on this case and I looked at plaintiff's affidavit and whatnot, I'm like, wow, that's a lot. That the ORP paid someone to go work on the campaign, and that's all we're looking at. And if you look at, I'm sorry, Mr. Hicks, if you look at the Mancini affidavit, that's hitting that square on. So I understand, it's in hindsight that, well, why didn't they lay everything out? But the accusation was the ORP paid Mancini for work on the Schmidt campaign. And Mr. Schmidt is saying, wait a minute, I never talked to RJ Mancini, and the testimony is that she didn't talk to him, and he said that he didn't talk to her. So anyway, that's why that affidavit is short, sweet, to the point, because they're confronting what was in the Hicks affidavit head on. It's offensive now, is that they see in retrospect. I think that's probably why. But and going back to Christina brought it up, when you're a candidate, there's a lot going on. And for better or for worse, this whole thing is tainted by the householder effort, organization, whatever. But them wanting to put people in the field and them wanting to make sure that they're in contact with the candidates and doing things don't mean that they're necessarily working for the campaign in a way that's reportable. And especially Stephen Caraway, who said, and I remember him saying this, he had an LLC that, so JPL paid his LLC, turning rivers or whatever. He said he was responsible for all the campaigns south of 70.
Right.
That doesn't mean that he's walking door to door for all those campaigns or working on. His interest is in what JPL wants to do, and that's in keeping in contact with candidates so those candidates win. That's what he wants to do. His effort is on behalf of the householder, led group. Same thing probably with RJ Mancini. It's control of OROC, what we used to call it, whatever it is now. But again, they're, whoever is paying whatever is probably not very clean, but it's up to OROC to then put people in the field and to tell the candidates, here is what the in-kind contribution is from OROC for this person. I mean, all kinds of candidates.
That's what I was saying. I agree with
Right. But the fact that, somewhere midstream, they said, hey, RJ, can you go attend this, or can you go video that, or can you go Facebook that? He said he never really touched our Facebook, and I think it was the second, was he here for 2 days, I guess? Because when he said he spent 10%, I was like, wow, that's a lot more than nothing. And again, I think it's irrefutable that Mrs. Schmidt didn't direct him to work on her campaign. And whether, it's unclear whether she even knew that he was working on her campaign. I do think that any work that Stephen Caraway did was in kind and volunteer effort. I think there's confusion about, because I vaguely remembered, I didn't write it down, but I vaguely remember the testimony about how much time he spent on Freeman and Schmidt.
just because
And I think that's, if you look at those two campaigns, it wasn't 50% of the entire work week was spent on Schmidt's campaign.
no, he said that. It was 50% of the 100%. So he would have, huh?
For the two of
For
them.
those,
So he would have worked, well, no, he would have worked 25% of the time.
one time, the entire week.
That's what he's saying.
Yeah, I think that's a response to a poorly worded question. Because he was responsible for all the campaign stuff in 70.
And he said this, but he said his primary function was Schmidt and Freeman. That's in the testimony.
I hear you. I think that was either poorly responded or questioning. Because I think that is looking at those two campaigns alone. How do you divide your time, or how would you divide your time? Again, it is, his interest is in seeing all those candidates win, not for Mrs. Schmidt's sake, but for Oswald's sake. That's what his efforts are.
Oh, I agree.
So anyway, and I've tailed on long enough, and again, and maybe the director can help me, but I'm looking at this affidavit, and here is what the allegations are. And I just don't see that those allegations were proven at all.
You don't,
No, and
Well-
again, what did the treasurer know at the time those things were filed? Because the allegation is, and you now know that RJ Mancini, because his testimony came up here. Personally, I wouldn't have filed an in-kind, because now you got things out of whack, because there was no in-kind from.
Yeah.
dollars.
It was, or
And she's claiming something that didn't, that's what they decided to do.
And maybe it was 5%, maybe.
Maybe it's fine, yes, he just said,
Throw out a number.
spitballing it, how do you know?
but for the fact they amended their,
Well, but then they're in a ha-ha gotcha moment, which is not, so I guess the question is, when these things were filed, we didn't know RJ Mancini was doing anything for her campaign. RJ Mancini said he didn't talk to her. And they filed a they didn't get any kind of contribution statement from anyone. So is what they filed true and accurate based on what they understood at the time? My response is, yeah. That's just where I'm coming.
but then I go back to the knowingly, that they did know through the evidence and testimony.
That's
And 927.
I don't think you file a criminal-ish quasi-ish commission complaint. Then say, let's go fish and find out what we come up with. And then we're gonna say, aha, it wasn't this violation. It was because you didn't do anything from last September 23 until now.
But he knew, Hicks knew from the Freeman case, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, that Mancini testified there that he did work for Schmitz.
But
So I mean, it was already known. That's how he found out. Is that not correct?
that may be, but does that mean that the treasurer Mr. Schmidt or Ms. Schmidt was in.
I see what you're saying. You're saying that from the get-go, the accusation was she didn't file the reports correctly, but from what you're saying is from what she knew at that time, whatever day it was, 2020, 21, whatever, at that time, she did file what she knowingly had in front of her. And it was not until much later that it became apparent that RJBCD.
The RJ did do some work, which she didn't ask for. And that's sort of like,
I
you
should
know,
over reported.
what if, you know, a person of bad character goes out and knocks door for you? You can't stop that. And you have to put on that, this person of bad character in the neighborhood is now doing things because that person took it upon him or herself to knock doors.
There are a lot of forces that work when there are speakerships and elections being run and things that are far beyond and exceeding your ability to control as an individual candidate. So I think this gets into a very dangerous territory of assumptions that you cannot expect somebody to have the knowledge or purview of unless they explicitly knew. If she, you know, if there is obvious evidence and proof that she knew at that time, then otherwise this information was brought to light in this case. How could it? Yeah, I
Could she have reported something that didn't come to light until, you know,
Yes.
September 27th of 23? How could she have reported that back?
Like any of us are saying that the reports were as originally filed were not done in good faith and were not complete as of that time. I think there are a couple of us that feel like come August, September, when this came to light, you know, actions should have been taken, at least, you know, I'm not gonna lie, it feels, and I'm the independent here, so, I mean, you've got all these moving parts and so given this and that. I mean, I'm not stupid. If it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's a duck, right? I mean, this wasn't happening because they wanted things to be clear, right? This was happening so they could do things, in my opinion, that might be off the books, right? And honestly, I think the affidavits, I think that's part of the reason for, you know, trying to point the other direction with the wording. Again, I'm not here of trying to, you know, we can only do what we can do, but I mean, it's overly complex and it was overly complex for a reason. And, you know, I think the right thing to do at the time that these affidavits were being written would have been to, you know, hey, call JPL and ORP, did you guys do anything that was off the books and gotten information back from them? That didn't happen, right? And, you know, I think a big part of the least Mr. Hicks' closing argument is, hey, we're supposed to try to make campaign finance being on the above board, be on the FNF as a part of this commission. And, I mean, you can get sort of technical on timing, but I mean, I think that, you know, maybe there's not a statute that says it. I think come September, there should have been at least some investigation towards, hey, maybe this should have been intended by somebody. Maybe it's the ORP that makes an amendment. I don't know, but nothing happened for a period of months, and that bothers me.
Has the ORP ever acknowledged that they in-kinded Mr. Mancini to her? Have they ever acknowledged that?
No, they didn't say that because what CCAR said was he said they get some,
some media, not staff.
he just did media and they were not in kind.
But they did in kind to JPL to assign as,
No, they didn't in kind. HRCC hired JPL to do field work.
okay, then Mancini was assigned to
That's what they-
JPL to be directed. That's why Tommy Roth was directing them. So they in kind to JPL Mancini because ORP is who paid Mancini.
But,
Yeah.
yeah, I was gonna say, because Rob Seahart's in his affidavit, to your point, which you don't feel more great about, says that he did not specifically assign him or any other person to work or volunteer, so.
He assigned him to JPL. And then Tommy Rolfe assigned him to work on whatever, one of which was a couple of door knockings
You did.
for Gene Schmidt. So Sicar's affidavit is factual. He didn't specifically, or I guess specifically assign him to JPL, and Tommy Rolfe specifically assigned him to do things, but he was paid for ORB.
And I don't know this for certain, but I thought the testimony was that he was paid by the Ohio Republican Party, but
Who's
or JPNC. But
he was,
either OROC reimbursed them or there was something else. For that, right, right. But the media thing, I think, is the ORP. Well, anyway, so they left the in-kinding of personnel of the OROC to let them take care of that. And JPL, Jeff Longstreth or whoever was, Tommy Rolfe, was kind of directing things. But the people who worked for were paid by somehow or another the House caucus. It's my recollection that somehow that's the way the money flowed. JPL didn't cut a check to RJBC for its work.
no,
Which is what makes it
maybe they done.
Right.
Right. He says when they didn't come.
But I think it still doesn't change the premise of Peter's assumption here, or basic recollection, that if all these things weren't established until now, the premise of the allegation has where to land, because she didn't have any of that knowledge or information.
I didn't say them. I didn't know.
Right, but the time this was filed, there was nothing, she didn't do anything.
Civil cases, you can update the complaint to match the evidence that comes in. I'm not aware that happens here. This is what we have to decide. Was are the allegations in this affidavit proven or not? Not, you deserve a speeding ticket because you're going this speed yesterday. We now know that's limited.
Right.
Well, to argue it another way, if they didn't amend their report, I think we'd be looking at something totally different, right? So they amended their report, but let's say they didn't, they wouldn't have done that. And then we find out, and we know that Mancini did work. And now what should we do? Because he did do work. I mean, he testified that he did work for him.
But it didn't rise to the level of, from what we heard, yes, it was a substantial number, not just frivolous, and I don't.
But that, no, I didn't raise that. Now, Mr. Caraway said in his testimony that it has to be measurable work.
Right.
That's not correct. Okay, I know he does political work, but in kind, and then he went on to say things like, in politics, we don't have time cards, we don't have a way of keeping track. How do I know if somebody did 2 hours over here or they did 8 hours over there? Paraphrasing. And he says it has to be measurable work. Well, the fact of the matter is the law doesn't say measurable work. The law says if you do an in-kind, it has to be reported and you have to have your best guesstimate. So let me give you two examples. So, I come from a union background. We had to report everything, okay? Because if Christina wanted to be a union member, but she didn't like our politics, she could object to that, right? If we did, so the only thing I could charge her would be actual representation. So if you had like a staff rep, because I was the president for 12 years, 50 staff reps, they had to keep weekly reports and we had to change all of our stuff. Okay, because the law dictated that we now have to keep track of political activity. We have to keep track of organizing activity because that's not representational. So say they work, typically they would work 10 hours a day, 50 hours a week. In the bucket, say they did, on Saturdays, they did walk lists, right? Which we did a lot. They have to now account for that activity. How many hours did they do? If they went to a rally during the day or after work, they had to take and write down what that was. If they went to a work site to try to organize people, they have to say, I spent an hour at Cuyahoga County Juvenile Center, just saying, or, whatever, Oregon trying to organize. That time all has to be accounted for. So there's, and then attorneys, just throwing it out there, attorneys, they do in bill intents. You know this, you're an attorney, so you have to keep track of all of your time.
Yeah.
So I believe that Mr. Caraway was totally wrong. And he may have given Gene Schmidt that advice. Okay, that it wasn't measurable work, so don't worry about it. Well, I guess this is the question, is that an affirmative defense on her part?
But she said she had no idea.
Right.
But she's not saying that he didn't do measurable work. She said, I didn't even know our James.
No, I know that, but Caraway's, I was responding to Peters about it has to be measurable work. It just has to be work.
Right.
It doesn't matter if you're there for a half hour, you have to report that in kind. That's the law.
What if your people who are doing that one don't report it? Is it your responsibility for filing the union stuff?
Thank you.
No. That's so and so.
It's our responsibility as anybody to make your best guess with it. And what do you know? It goes back to a knowing standard.
Yes, exactly.
Right. But I just didn't want to get confused
No, I
about
got
measurable work. And obviously, we're talking about a minimal amount of money. I mean, he put down like $688 and they amended the report. We're not talking capital case here, but the fact is, they did do in-kind work with Gene Schmidt.
But yeah, the
I mean, I don't know.
amendment was based off of information found after the allegation was put forth, so it's.
Yeah, but that's what hearings are for.
Mhm.
I mean, they trying to get to the truth, aren't we? What really happened?
But it's still never, yeah,
Okay, it's fine. I understand your argument.
But I think that the whole point, I think both sides. Did she not file proper reports because she knew something when she filed it? I think there's an, argument to say no, because she found out on September 27th, right? So how could she have knowingly filed something when she didn't know until or September 27th? So I guess what I'm hearing is the argument that she didn't file inaccurate reports because she filed based on what she knew. So there was no inaccuracy and then once she found out, that's a different matter. So that if the allegation is she filed false reports or she didn't file complete and accurate reports, if she didn't know, how could she have included that in there if she didn't find out until months later?
Yeah, I don't disagree with what you're saying, but I think Peter's saying hold it.
that's exactly.
Because, well, I thought that's what I was saying. But I was saying there is a violation after 9/27.
So you're saying she
And
did
I
not
say-
file an inaccurate and incomplete report when she filed it. She filed based on what she knew. So it was complete and accurate. Then it became another issue once she found something else. She should have filed sooner, is what you're saying.
Technically, what you're saying is. Days, but she didn't.
She did.
21 days, and that would be from the time of awareness versus the unknowing state. in
So
which-
I'm saying at the very least, there's a violation after 9/27.
But that's a different case than this one, right?
No. It's all one. Got any input on it?
We have the allegations that are before us.
Right.
And obviously something was done in the intervening period, that reflects the understanding that, you know, that the respondent had. And at that point, you know, I think that's all part of what we're dealing with here. I appreciate what you're saying, Mr. Stoutberg, in terms of, you know, what the complaint says. But I feel like, you know, once knowledge is, and that goes back to at least some of my understanding of the Freeman decision. If you have a certain understanding and knowledge, you need to reflect that in your filings. And she did come into that knowledge in September. Subsequently, reports were filed in January. And that's kind of where I'm coming from as police.
So you would say there is a violation?
I would say there is, but that's me.
Well,
I'm not the
you're the
decider.
guy with all the
I'm not the
experience.
decider, though.
But even in, I guess I also go to the documents that we got shared the very last meeting, her amended report. She actually references she's amending them because of information that was presented to this mission. So I think she ties her amendment that she filed on in January to the information that was actually given on, you know, that September date. So, you know, I would concur. It does feel like there's a violation there. Even I understand, you know, how you're relating to the affidavits, but it even seems like her amended bounds are based on information that was presented to the commission.
So really the only, well, what I'm hearing, the biggest complaint is that once she was informed, she should have taken action sooner. So,
Based on what you testified.
yes, so if there would be an issue, it would be the fact that once she was made aware, she really should have filed that amendment within 21 days.
On the $688 amount, is that just what he had said off the cuff, or is that?
It's based on his
No, it's-
paycheck.
Right.
He presented a paycheck. And I think it was 6,000, I think 680 or 660.
Well, I mean, what they in kind
And we're even
Yeah.
certain that that is directly correlated with hers, or she just wrote a check because that's the amount that.
Because he said 10%. He said I spent approximately 10%. So with the total amount that he was paid, they took that amount from his total paycheck and then did 10%. So it was conjecture at best.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about campaign staffers and like their awareness of the breakdown of their hours and their knock X number of doors and come back and report that you hit 500 or, you know, like a person under pressure saying this is, you know, approximate, it's just all very interesting.
Well, I mean, Roth also testified about Mancini, and he said he was there for Super Saturdays. All right, meeting at the parking lot. He said that he did signs, he said he did walks, and Roth was the guy that cut to the walk books. So that's the person, because he's Mancini's boss, he's the guy cutting the walk books. I mean, really, Hicks probably should have drilled down on him about the walk books, but he did, so, you know. But,
Yeah, but 10% of the doors in that area, I don't.
well, yeah, but I mean, I believe they conceded that point by the fact that it's amended. It's, I mean, that's what the Schmidt campaign is saying.
It's just what,
It's in the amendment. So,
this is what
it's 6
was submitted.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you've seen it, more, but it's just nice to have it under pressure. That's what they going on. And there's another one for 2,000. Yeah. Prior to citing the. That's what we, I think, that's what they used to remember.
Just to move this thing.
You what?
I said just to move this thing. We need more discussion. It's sit here and debate. I'd make a motion, Madam Chair, that there's to find a violation, $50 fine.
I'm going to ask you to be more specific as it relates to the nature of your finding, because you talked earlier about finding no violation of
Or,
some provisions,
right,
and that wasn't mentioned.
right. So I would say, well,
Once you
Is that
draw
part
the
of a
first motion,
I'll withdraw.
yeah, and
I have to
then,
take an overall motion.
no, you can do it in pieces. That's not a problem.
May I say something?
No, go ahead.
Well, when I'm looking, well, I mean, I don't want to disrespect you because you have the knowledge of, but I know, I'm looking at the Freeman. And we did address it with Freeman in addressing each complaint. Because there is one
Right.
where we did find no violation.
Right.
And then we went on to say, so the commission hereby decrees blah, 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 or declares insufficient evidence for this one section, but then there's another section and that's where the fine was levied.
Correct.
Okay, so I feel like if we could do that, that would be, I think we should address it. There's no way to do that. Is there a way to do that?
Oh, no, I think there is. I think it becomes a matter of, and again, I'm working off of previous comments made, not just by Mr. Weil, but by other folks as it relates to the allegations concerning 359903. There was no violation.
That's
But
good,
then there-
right?
Correct. But then you could certainly assert that there have been violations of the filing statutes, 351713. And there's also the provision of the 351710B2 about the treasurer's obligation to keep strict account of all contributions and expenditures, and the purpose for each was dispersed. Those are, I'd say those are essentially the three allegations that we have for us. Certainly, while you may break out some of the provisions of 13, in the pre, post, annual, et cetera, I mean, I think one finding there to me would be sufficient.
May I read this just because the affidavit was filed by Hicks, the complaint exhibit A. I mean, it says Christopher Hicks being the first one, says there's a cause to believe that Gene Schmidt, Miami Township, Claremont County, Ohio, failed to file a complete and accurate campaign finance statement. 2, file to keep a strict account of all contributions from whom received and the purse for which they were dispersed, and or 3, accepted direct corporate. 1 and 2, I mean, file a complete and accurate would entail all of the information that was had to date. So again, I don't know, the chronological unveiling of information to me tells me that this, as it's stated, falls short of when it was filed. So I don't know, just reading that kind of, and I've had the full spectrum of emotions and observations in this case and just fact finding, but those two things, or failed to keep a strict account of all contributions. My observation was there was a desire to have a strict account of I mean, at least, the way things were followed up on or stated in the testimony. So I just wanted to say that reading that as it's written, it's important. I mean, you highlighted that, Peter, but reading again is, I think, important. Sorry to disrupt.
So the motion.
There's no motion pending right now.
No, I was gonna say the motion should probably say that maybe we did not find improper corporate activity in an individual campaign committee. But if you're saying that we feel like there was a failure to file a complete and accurate statement, that makes sense. And then I guess we should have addressed the treasurer appointed under division of this as strict accountable contribution. So is it in three buckets that we're looking at the motion or any guidance?
I think that's what I would encourage, yes.
Okay.
And they have a definitive buzz on the issues that are,
So should we do it in three buckets?
I would encourage taking those up.
So would anyone like to make a motion on the matter of improper corporate activity in an individual campaign committee?
I'll make that motion.
And that would be,
To find no violation.
Second.
so we have a motion on the floor that's been duly seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
I,
Pose same sign. Carried with a vote of 7-0.
6-0.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Okay.
I originally was writing something on my notes, so I wrote over it.
Thank you. The next motion, would someone like to make a motion regarding the failure to file a complete and accurate statement?
You're on 35-17-10.
35-17-13.
Oh, you're coming from the bottom.
Sorry, I'm going in reverse. I apologize.
So Phil, this is regarding what? Is this the treasurer fee?
No, this is the kidney finance filings being complete and accurate.
Overall,
Failure to file a complete and accurate campaign finance report.
all right, I'll make that motion.
And your motion is,
The motion is to find a violation and fine Gene Schmidt's campaign $50.
I'm sorry.
I will do so here. I'm just giving myself position nice.
Yes.
Ms. Hagan,
next,
Mr. Stoutberger. Yeah. Mr. Polkie,
Yay.
Mr. Lyle,
Yeah,
Chair Kaufman.
Yeah.
That motion passes 4-2.
The next motion should be around the treasurer appointed under division D1 of this section shall keep a strict account of all contributions for the purpose of which dispersed.
I'll find no violation.
second,
You have a motion on the floor that's been duly seconded. All in favor, would you like a roll call on that one as
I
well?
think we should probably do a roll call. That would be my inclination, but then, give me 1 second here.
and this is to find the treasurer guilty, is that, I just want to be,
Yeah, it's a matter of making a finding against the treasurer for not keeping a strict account of all contributions.
so question. This probably is back.
That would be against Peter, I would think that it would be appropriate to say this is against Peter
That's what I want to hear.
as
So-
treasurer.
So we have somebody that's deceased. Correct? Yes.
If we did not hear from.
Right. And I would also, and I would add, I mean, considering that the new treasurer came on board on September 18th, I looked at those two.
I guess my question would
But
be,
was not previously involved.
how do you find the violation about somebody that's passed away?
I mean, you could do it, but. Ready for the vote?
Does anyone object to the roll call? You would roll call or
I just think it's finding a violation, right?
find a violation? Yeah.
So,
The motion is to find no violation of Iowa Code section 351710T. All in favor of the motion?
well, I just want to make sure that, I mean, you're going to still do a roll call. Okay.
It doesn't, I mean, I'm more than willing to do a roll call. It's easy enough for me to do that.
All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries with a vote of 6-0.
That matters concluded, Madam Chair, members of the commission.
Okay, so. Gosh, I'm looking at the wrong.
Oh, that's okay. The only thing remaining on the agenda, well, there were two things remaining on the agenda posted. One is related to the appointment of the chair and vice chair. I think we've decided to put that off until the beginning of the next meeting. And then the other thing would be the announcement of the next meeting of the commission is improperly listed on January 25th. It is February the 8th of 2024.
It's in this room, right?
And it will be in this room as well, correct?
I just have a quick question. Any of John or any of the Democrats, you know, not going to be here on the 22nd? I have a mention.
I have not, I haven't had that conversation with anybody else, so I don't.
No,
think
I'm planning on being here. I don't have any.
The only thing I would say is that in talking to Davis in a limited fashion, she has not said anything about this in the future. But I will reach out to her.
That can take months, actually, right away. There you go.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so do we have a motion to adjourn?
Not yet.
I'm sorry.
So moved.
I mean, there's something else. Okay, we have a motion on the floor. It's been for the second and all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries with a vote of 6-0. We are adjourned at 3:34.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Record
Appreciate it.
departure.
We made your time for this.
Yes, thank you.
Mr.
So, nice time frame, thank you.
You don't make one.